So we've talked a little bit about making the most of your efficient practice time, and I'm going to lead you through a game now that I think is probably one of my favourite games to actually do when you're practicing, to really get you physically focused on what you're doing, but also mentally focused on what you're doing. We see a lot of people, particularly in the winter time, they come to the driving range, pound balls, and they don't really get the most effective use of that practice time. So when you come to the driving range, what I'd like you to do is picture a golf course in your mind that you know quite well. A golf course where you can remember every single hole and actually whereabouts the dangers or the hazards are. So it might be the golf course that you're a member of a club at, or the golf course you've played a few times, or even the golf course that you're going to go and play next. And you can pick out a few targets out here on the driving range which are actually going to be part of that golf course. So we're going to pretend that we're standing on the first hole and we're looking out here into the distance, and we can use a couple of the trees or a couple of the markers in the distance to give us an idea of the width of the fairway. Now if you can look out there but you can't distinguish how wide a fairway would be, you're not quite sure where the trees would be, what I would encourage you to do is stretch your arm out at full width and then make a fist. Making a fist here, if you look at the outside edges of those two knuckles, that is roughly the width of quite a narrow fairway on the golf course. It's around about 10 degrees. So if you stretch your arm right out there, position it out so it's either side of a tree, and then taking the width off those two knuckles is roughly the width of a narrow fairway. And by all means try that on the golf course as well, and look at that and think, okay, so hole number 1 allows me to be this wide apart, hole number 2 is a big par 5, a little bit wider, maybe that, maybe even two knuckle width. That's a much wider fairway. But if you can drive the golf ball within the knuckle width of your hand, generally speaking, you're going to be quite a good straight driver of the golf ball. So we're looking down there now, there's 3 trees in the distance. I've got to try and get the ball between those 3 trees. So I'm going to go ahead, hole I'm playing, let's say it's a 400 yard par 4. So 400 yard par 4 with a fairway down there between the trees. That for me, natural choice for me, is a driver. So I'm going to tee the ball up with my driver. I'm going to stand back behind the golf ball, going through my pre-shot routine as I would do, picking out a marker in the distance that I want to aim for. Good setup position. Swinging, picking that tree out there, trying to drive the ball straight in line with that tree, keeping it nicely on the fairway. So I'm watching that ball down now, and it has actually gone straight down the fairway, a little bit of drift to the right hand side, but it's gone a good distance. And I know my driver, when I hit it well, will fly around about 260, 265, mainly rolling out to possibly 280 yards with a little bit of rollout. So if I was playing a 400 yard hole, I've just hit it 280, that means I've got 120 left in. So I now play my second shot. So I'd pick a target out on the driving range around about 120 yards, choose the right club for that shot, and then go ahead and hit that one. So 120 for myself would be a pitching wedge. And take my pitching wedge now, not using the T-peg of course, line myself up. There's a 100 yard board here, so I'm going to imagine the 100 yard board is the front edge of the green. I want to try and carry over the 100 yard board and land it towards the back or the middle of the green to give me that 120 yard shot. So lining up with a 100 yard board, aiming at that one, 120 yard shot. And I'd like to say that I've deliberately pulled that offline. I didn't, I was trying to hit the green. But let's say I deliberately pulled that offline, and now that leaves me a missed green. So now I have to chip back onto the green. Now I know that on the first hole that I'm playing here, back left, I'm down quite a steep bank. So I'm actually going to choose my lob wedge for this shot. I'm going to make life quite difficult on myself. I'm going to play a lob wedge. I'm going to pick out a divot just in front of me, which is my landing area, go ahead, set up, and just play the ball onto the landing area. So a little lob wedge from the side of the green, just nicking one back onto the putting surface. Quite happy with that shot. I think I've hit that shot close enough that I could walk up. Imagine myself making the little sort of 4-foot putt, put that down in my own mind as a par, and then progress on to the next hole. Now if you actually have a putting area at the back of the driving range that you could putt on, or you've got access to a putting green, you could actually go and take that putt. I'm on the practice ground here, I don't have that facility, but I think I've hit that ball close enough. I'll imagine myself getting a par on that hole, straight to the next hole. Now Now, by working around the golf course in this fashion, it really helps you keep a mental and physical focus on changing the shots. We see a lot of people that come to the driving range and say, well, I'm really good on the driving range, I never have any problems on the driving range, I just struggle on the golf course. But that's because on the range you hit 15 drivers, put your driver away, 15 7-irons, put your 7-iron away, 15 chip shots, done, and that's you practiced. But on the golf course, the reality is you're hitting one tee shot, one 7-iron, one pitching wedge, one driver, and you're always changing those clubs a lot. So let's try and make a little bit more sense of this practice time where we actually bring the golf course to the driving range. So rather than having a range session and then a golf course session, we do the golf course session on the driving range. It's a really quick and efficient way of practicing, and hopefully that way when you go on the golf course you'll have a positive memory of how well you played on the range and take that on the golf course with you to help you get more efficient use of that practice time.